So who are all the other college administrators? Let's take a look. So the Princeton Review says that college administrators are anyone that works overseeing admissions, distribution of university materials, planning curricula, overseeing budgets for payrolls, maintenance of the physical plant, personnel, university records, financial aid, housing, job placement, alumni development, athletics, student activities. So when did all of these positions come about? Let's see if I can find anything on that. Well, this looks promising.
When Harvard was founded in 1636, the president was the only administrator and staff member of the university. As president, he was also the professor, custodian, and all positions in between.
Within the 19th century, a gradual movement began to diversify curriculum. Many educators believed that Latin and Greek were dead languages, and that institutions should move to a more open form of study, where elective courses were options open to students. This movement proved to be very controversial, and as a response, in September of 1827, President Jeremiah Day at Yale called for a committee meeting to resolve this issue. By 1828, the committee released a Yale report, which stated that institutions should require all of its students to follow a single thorough curriculum, with Latin and Greek literature at its core.
Intercollegiate sports began in 1852 between the Harvard and Yale rowing teams.
We see a rise in intercollegiate sports, creating campus pride throughout colleges and universities. The collegiate ideals of the era emphasized character and teamwork, and as a result, varsity sports flourished as an important ideal.
Before the Civil War, most colleges and universities functioned with a president, a treasurer, and a part-time librarian. The registrar manages the registration of students, student records, class schedules, and assists the deans and academic department heads with the academic calendar, as well as policy and procedural practices in accordance with state and federal guidelines. The registrar holds responsibility of assuring an institution's compliance with the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, which forbids release of student records without consent of the student.
The Morrill Act provided funds for the creation of schools in each state as long as institutions were devoted to educate people about agriculture, home economics, mechanical arts, and other professions that were practical at the time. The purpose of education shifted from the classical studies and allowed for more applied studies that would prepare students for the world that they would face once leaving the classroom. Women colleges and co-ed institutions began to take similar formation between 1890 and 1920. Students created organizations that went beyond the institutional goals, such as literary societies, dramatic groups, newspapers, and athletic teams. This meant a shift from the homebound wife and daughter to the ideal of a new woman.
The Committee of 10 in 1892, followed by the Committee of 12, led to the standardization of college entrance requirements. In 1900, the College Board was founded to simplify the application process for students and admissions offices. It also helped in the standardization of admissions requirements.
In the early 20th century, most institutions were managed by academics performing dual roles as professors and administrators. The last half of the 20th century changed this typical role as it grew apparent that the professor-administrator could no longer manage classroom and college.
As more schools began to start intercollegiate sports teams, an organization called the IAAUS, or Intercollegiate Athletic Association of the United States, began. It was created in March of 1906. A few years later, in 1910, the IAAUS changed names to become the NCAA. Intercollegiate athletic programs allowed for coaching, staff, maintenance, and athletic director positions to become available in higher education.
The American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers was founded in 1910. Today, the association has over 10,000 members from 2,500 institutions.
In 1918, the National Association of Deans and Advisors of Men was founded, which later became the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators.
By creating professional organizations, this professionalizes fields of higher education.
A group of congressmen with long memories who were in the last war. They knew that when a man gets out of the Army or Navy or Marines, he's worried most about a job, an education, and a home. And that's why Congress, led by the President, passed the law, the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944, better known as the GI Bill of Rights. Veterans Administration offices have been set up in every state, and it's here the ex-soldier goes if he wants to continue his education, any kind of education, and in any part of the country. High school, trade school, college, university. Funds are provided for laboratory fees, books, supplies, and equipment are included. Through the GI Bill of Rights, the government pays Sergeant Brown's school up to $500 a year.
The GI Bill helped veterans assimilate into civilian life. Massive amounts of veterans returning from World War II enrolled in college with the help of the GI Bill. As a result, more administrators were needed for more specialized duties.
The women's civil rights movement takes flight, leading to many changes towards gender equity in higher education.
The Supreme Court case of Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954. Linda Brown was denied admission to her elementary school in Topeka, Kansas, because she was black. A lawsuit was filed against the Board of Education. Her suit eventually reached the Supreme Court under Chief Justice Earl Warren. Attorney Thurgood Marshall argued that the segregation among schools was not giving equal opportunities to the minorities. Warren ruled that separate educational facilities are inherently unequal and is therefore unconstitutional. This court decision became the first step towards African American civil rights.
Due to growth in enrollment and complexities of higher education administration, required colleges and universities to find employees who could devote energies to strictly managing a specific segment of the university rather than many at once. One individual could no longer manage the complex higher educational institution on their own.
Martin Luther King was a significant figure of the civil rights movement as he fought for equality for all. He would speak about the importance of education and tolerance. His efforts helped with the creation of the Higher Education Act of 1965. The act forbids schools that were government funded from discriminating based on race, color, religion, national origin, or sex. This leads to the introduction of affirmative action in higher education. This forced institutions to create hiring practices open to all individuals.
June 23rd, 1972 is an important day in the history of this country because of that breakthrough legislation which was passed, which really provided opportunities for women and girls that they had never had before in the history of this country.
Although nowadays Title IX is more often associated with gender equity in college athletics, it covers many additional educational activities. In short, this amendment demanded equality for the inclusion of women as a traditional and underrepresented group in higher education, and theoretically put them on an equal educational playing field with men. This comprehensive law covers almost all aspects of education and significantly opens up education and workplaces to women. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 is passed, prohibiting programs receiving federal funds from discriminating against qualified individuals with disability. This act paved the way for departments of disability services in higher education, and personnel were hired to ensure that colleges and universities were compliant with the law and served as advocates for students.
The Council for Accreditation of Counseling and Related Educational Programs was founded in 1981. This agency accredits programs in counseling and student affairs/higher education.
When choosing a higher education program from a college or university, you want to be sure you're getting the proper preparation you need to enter the workforce in your chosen field. That's where accreditation comes in. Accreditation is a review by experts of the quality of higher education institutions and their programs. In the United States, accreditation is the main way that students, parents, the press, the public, even certain government officials know that an institution or program offers a quality education that will successfully prepare students, in this case you, to work in your chosen field of study.
Early 1990s that affirmative action would take center stage in higher education admission policies.
The 90-10 rule is a federal law barring for-profit colleges from receiving more than 90% of their revenues from the Department of Education federal student aid. It's needed because it prevents for-profit colleges from being funded solely by federal taxpayers.
The American with Disabilities Act is passed as a wide-ranging civil rights law that prohibits discrimination based on disability.
The National Student Clearinghouse was created in 1993 by the higher education community. The NSC has access to records at over 3,000 schools to verify enrollment and degrees for any reason, with full compliance of FERPA regulations. This allows registrars to focus on other duties. The Green Movement and focus on sustainability has also brought about administrative positions in higher education.
The recent Penn State scandal has largely affected higher education. Risk management positions are currently being added to large Division I schools around the country to prevent situations like those at Penn State.
In 2012, the U.S. News & World Report rankings released a list of the top 17 ranked graduate schools for higher education administration. These graduate programs are recognized for their excellence in producing future higher education administrators. Today, students have the option of enrolling in a graduate program, online, on campus, or a blended format that will fit their schedule. Certificate and doctoral programs offer additional options that allow students to advance further in the field.
This is just an overview of some other administrative positions within higher education and what led to their creation, professionalization, and has changed those roles over time. Administrative positions will continue to grow as new issues arise with students, institutions, and society as a whole.